What if the most glamorous woman in Hollywood was caught in a deadly power struggle with the most powerful man in America, and the nation's top intelligence agency knew all about it? This is the chilling story they never wanted you to hear, where fame, politics, and secrets collide in ways that still haunt history. Marilyn Monroe, the dazzling Hollywood icon whose beauty defined an era. John F. Kennedy, the charismatic U.S. president who inspired a nation. And the FBI, the powerful intelligence agency that watched it all unfold, not just from the sidelines but from behind the curtains. Together, their names form a triangle of mystery, influence, and possibly conspiracy. This is not just a tale of fame, politics, or espionage. It's a story about how sex, power, and secrecy collided in a silent war, one that may have contributed to the downfall of all three. So how did America's sweetheart, the most powerful man in the world, and the most feared intelligence agency become entangled in a secret war? Let's find out. The Star and the Statesman. It began innocently, or so it seemed. In the early 1960s, Marilyn Monroe was at the height of her career. Her films were box office gold, her image graced magazine covers, and her allure captivated the world. But behind the camera flashes and public adoration, Marilyn was battling deep insecurities, substance abuse, and a desperate search for love and meaning. Enter John F. Kennedy. Young, charming, and seen as a symbol of progress, JFK was no stranger to celebrity circles. He had a well-documented appetite for extramarital affairs, many of which were known to insiders, but kept from the public thanks to a cooperative press, something almost unthinkable today. Their paths crossed multiple times, but the most infamous instance was May 19, 1962. Marilyn appeared on stage at Madison Square Garden to sing "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" in a sultry, breathless tone. She wore a flesh-colored dress covered in rhinestones, so tight it had to be sewn onto her. The moment was electric and historic, but what seemed like a playful gesture sparked alarms within the corridors of power, not because of the performance itself, but because it revealed something the public wasn't supposed to see: intimacy. The love affair that wasn't meant to be. According to numerous reports and biographies, Monroe and Kennedy had at least one romantic encounter, perhaps more. Some claim it was a short fling. Others argue it was an ongoing affair. What is agreed upon is that Monroe had feelings, real ones, but JFK was a politician, and in politics feelings are dangerous, especially when they come from someone like Monroe, who was emotionally vulnerable, connected to Hollywood elites, and known to speak freely when intoxicated. This is where the secret war begins. The FBI, under the rule of J. Edgar Hoover, was already keeping tabs on both Kennedy and Monroe. Hoover had an intense interest in maintaining political leverage. He saw knowledge as power, and what better leverage than an affair between the President of the United States and the most famous woman in the world? Hoover allegedly had recordings, phone taps, and even surveillance on Monroe. Her phone calls were monitored, her relationships noted, especially her growing connections with individuals deemed to be communist sympathizers. Monroe had befriended people like Frederick Vanderbilt Field, a known leftist, and she had expressed interest in causes that were viewed suspiciously during the Cold War. It wasn't just the affair. It was the possibility that Monroe could be used or manipulated. The thought that she might speak out, that she might know secrets, that she might intentionally or not become a liability. Bobby Kennedy's role in escalation. Enter the second Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, JFK's younger brother, and then Attorney General. He too was rumored to have had a close, perhaps romantic relationship with Monroe. Some speculate that once JFK ended the affair, Bobby stepped in either to comfort her or to manage the risk she posed. There are reports that Monroe began keeping a diary, what some call her Red Diary. It allegedly contained details of conversations she had with both Kennedys, touching on sensitive topics like nuclear arms, Cuba, and Vietnam. If such a diary existed, and many believe it did, it would have been a national security threat. Both men had dropped Monroe. She felt used, discarded, and isolated. Her mental health declined rapidly, and during this time she was constantly under surveillance, not just by the FBI, but possibly by the CIA and other unknown operatives. Some insiders say she threatened to hold a press conference to expose her affairs with the Kennedys. Others claim she called the White House repeatedly, begging for answers. Regardless of the exact truth, it's clear she had become a liability. The death of Marilyn Monroe. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her Brentwood home. The official cause, barbiturate overdose, ruled a probable suicide, but the inconsistencies in her death remain a source of suspicion. The first person to be called wasn't the police. It was Monroe's psychiatrist, then her publicist. then reportedly the White House. Only hours later did authorities arrive. By that time, her house had been cleaned, key witnesses had come and gone, and the timeline became muddled. Her autopsy revealed high levels of drugs in her system, but no water in her stomach, raising questions about how the pills were ingested. The phone records from that night, gone. Her diary, missing. The FBI files, redacted. According to author Donald Wolfe and other conspiracy researchers, Monroe's death was not suicide, but a carefully orchestrated cover-up. Some even believe she was murdered, either by government operatives to protect the Kennedys, or by individuals acting under other powerful interests. The FBI's shadowy motives. Why would the FBI care so much about an actress? Because Monroe wasn't just an actress. She was connected to the president, the attorney general, leftist thinkers, Hollywood elites, and even the mafia. That's right, the mob. Monroe had ties to Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford, who were also close to the Kennedy family. Sinatra, in particular, had connections to organized crime, especially through Sam Giancana, who reportedly assisted JFK's campaign in key states. To J. Edgar Hoover, Monroe wasn't a person, she was a threat vector, and in the paranoid environment of the Cold War, threats had to be neutralized. Hoover didn't trust the Kennedys. He suspected their private lives could compromise national security. In fact, many believe Hoover used information about Monroe's affair to blackmail or pressure JFK. After Monroe's death, the FBI's files exploded with memos, investigations, and internal briefings. Over 200 pages of FBI files related to Monroe exist today, some of them still heavily redacted. Why? What were they hiding? The aftermath and legacy. JFK would be assassinated just 15 months after Monroe's death, in November 1963. Bobby Kennedy would be assassinated in 1968. Monroe, JFK, and RFK, three stars that burned bright, died young, and left behind a wake of questions. The triangle between them was more than personal. It was political, it was strategic, and it was dangerous. To this day, theories abound. Some say Monroe was silenced to protect secrets. Others argue she was simply a tragic casualty of fame. But as more files are declassified and former insiders speak out, the picture becomes darker and clearer. The Red Diary has never surfaced, but declassified FBI documents have confirmed that Monroe was under government surveillance, that she was considered a national security concern, and that Hoover did use information about her relationships to maintain influence over the Kennedys. In the end, the secret war between Marilyn Monroe, JFK, and the FBI wasn't just about love, scandal, or celebrity. It was a high-stakes chess match, played in the shadows, between fame, power, and paranoia. Marilyn Monroe wanted to be loved, JFK wanted to be admired, the FBI wanted to control them both, and in trying to protect their secrets, they may have unleashed a chain reaction of tragedies that altered the course of American history. Some truths remain buried, some files remain sealed, but one thing is certain: when beauty, power, and secrets collide, the fallout is never simple, and the silence is never without purpose. The star is gone, the president is gone, the secrets, they're still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The war may be over, but the whispers have never stopped. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a mystery like this again.